Is there any discussion, changes, updates?
Who's taking the minutes?
Sandy is. Oh, we have a resigned secretary. I
we're just
didn't
curious.
mention that. Oh, yeah. She resigned 2 days ago.
Oh, jeez.
So we're looking for a replacement in the meantime.
All right.
Our secretary is doing it for us. Where did it? You know what? I'm closing this thing. Sorry.
That's what I was yeah, thank you.
What?
Minutes.
Cheryl, yes. Sorry.
Can I make a suggestion, since there's been a little bit of a change since the Right to Know workshop, that we need to do all of the changes to the minutes here in public, that we do like take page number 1, and then anybody who has comments on page number 1, and then page number 2.
Well, if nobody has anything to do, you know, any amendments to do, then we don't need to do that.
Well, I do.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm saying, if I go through the whole document, and then somebody else goes through the whole document from page 1.
Okay.
I'm just.
Okay. Page number 1, that sounds like a good idea. I didn't know you had changes. Yes.
Okay. Approval of the minutes. After the second paragraph, Ms. Sear made suggestions and amendments. Those amendments need to be noted in these minutes, because it doesn't say anywhere.
Actually, what they were was changed in the draft minutes and published as approved by the committee. So that's where the changes were done, in the draft.
Is that a new way that we're going to be doing that?
We've been doing that all along.
But don't we note the amendments in these minutes?
If you want to, do you want to, I don't, at this point, that was in June, I don't really want to go back through that and look at it, do you? To see what they were?
I'm just saying, process-wise, we usually wrote in the following minutes what the amendments were that were mentioned in that meeting.
Does anybody have any comments on that? I do, but yes?
You can either put them in the body of the minutes, or if the board members have a written list of changes, it can be attached as an appendix at the end of the minutes, rather than creating 3 additional pages of minutes. It can just be the minutes would say the minutes are corrected as attached.
Okay. Is that a legal requirement, Jim, in your opinion?
Yes, because the draft minutes have to, those are the minutes.
Public record.
Right.
Okay. So that's what needs to happen going forward. We'll advise our new secretary of that. Yes, did you have something on page 1?
That was it on page 1.
Okay. On page 2, does anybody have anything? Yes.
Public comment. Third sentence, the college and career readiness is no longer focused solely on SAT scores. Should there be college and career readiness something?
I think that's what was said.
The college and career readiness is no longer focused solely on SAT scores?
I don't think it's for us to put words in the mouth of whoever was speaking, if that's what she
It doesn't
said.
make sense, though. The college and career readiness document, the college and career readiness format,
Benchmark or?
benchmark,
To make you
or
feel better, you could put in parentheses standard.
standard? Okay, now that makes sense.
It's a good idea.
College and career readiness, parentheses standard, because typically when somebody's being interviewed and they have an implied, they would put it in parentheses as an editorial note to clarify for the reader.
Okay.
Are these verbatim?
I don't know. I didn't do them. And our secretary isn't here anymore.
My changes, my intent is that someone who's reading these, who wasn't at the meeting and didn't watch the tape, understands what these are.
Understood. Yep,
Okay.
understood. Okay, so if we put in standard, that's something, okay. Is there anything else on page 2? Okay, page 3. Yes. Cheryl?
Second paragraph, Mr. Swayze stated that 70% of the cost per pupil are salaries of the teachers. That shouldn't be.
It should be,
70% of the budget is the salaries and benefits?
did you say teachers or was it staff?
I don't remember what I did this afternoon, you remember?
Well, again, that's not a correct statement if we leave it in there. 70% of the cost per pupil are the salaries of the teachers?
That's incorrect. If that's what he said, that was incorrect. Did you say staff? Why don't we make it clear and just say staff? 70% of the budget is staff salaries.
Fine.
It's
I said
salaries.
Fine,
Yeah.
I guess.
70% of a budget, not 70% of the cost per pupil are salaries.
Actually, they're the same.
Isn't it the same thing?
It's actually
same.
higher when it's of the cost per pupil
you're actually
because the
right,
cost per
technically.
pupil excludes transportation and
and
food and some other stuff and
Wait a
debt
minute.
service.
Can I say something that's me?
Yeah.
Not just because it's me. If that's what somebody says, right or wrong.
Well, we don't
that
have
you
the
just-
secretary here
Let me-
who just resigned.
Can I
and-
finish?
and My intent is.
Cheryl, he's speaking.
Can I
Excuse me.
finish?
He's speaking.
You know, if we're gonna, our job is then not to go in and edit what somebody might say because we don't think it's right. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I was right. Maybe Pam will say something tonight and, it isn't accurate, that'd be her opinion. I mean, I don't think that's what we should be doing if we're gonna keep doing this in the future.
Right. I think it's correct that, and it's not correct at this point, Cheryl, to correct minutes for things that are said there which may have been misstated. The proper place to correct it is in the meeting.
Yeah.
And right now, it should go in the minutes that you noted that that's an incorrect statement. And whether it was said or misinterpreted by the secretary, we don't know. Does that work for you?
Well, it seems silly to have minutes if we don't know what anybody said. You just asked Charlton, did you say that? He said, I don't know. So basically, we're saying these minutes are not valid. If we can't.
Well, they're pretty valid. There may be, yes.
If I may?
Yes.
2 points. First of all, the minutes should not be verbatim unless we're going to hire a stenographer to actually come in and produce mini novels of minutes.
Yep.
The minutes should be understood that is the interpretation of the way the secretary heard the discussion only. Second of all, I don't know about how Mr. Swayze is feeling at the moment, but if anybody ever tries to correct something that I said in the minutes, they're in error. I read the minutes, and I specifically read the minutes to see what it says I said,
Right.
just as every person sitting at this table should be doing.
Okay, so that's.
And that's unless there's, somebody said, gee, Jim, did you really say 70% of the budget went for teaching salaries versus salaries? But that's.
And Mr. Swayze has said that he doesn't recall. At this point, I don't believe Cheryl went and looked at the video to see what was actually said. So I think they should stand the way they are because we have no better knowledge. And it's duly noted that the statement was not, as written in the minutes, is not absolutely correct. Yes, Mary.
I think that the points made by everybody here are valid, and understand that this is an unusual circumstance where the last time we met and received these minutes was, 4 months ago.
Yeah.
So this is likely not to be an issue going forward. I think the main thing here is that we operate in the spirit of what transpired and that we follow the right to know recommendations
Right.
that were made in the conference that we attended over the summer going forward.
Tom, you had something you
I
wanted
was
to
just going to say that I have been working on this with our secretary because she's spending close to 10 hours a week transcribing the meetings, and I finally explained to her that we can't sustain that.
Right.
And so what I shared with the board, and I just thought I'd share with you, is that the 91A2 has a clear definition of what minutes are supposed to hold, and Mr. Doggett is correct. The law reads that the minutes of all such meetings, including non-public sessions, shall include the names of the members, the persons appearing before the public bodies, a brief description, not transcription, description of the subject matter discussed and the final decisions, the votes, if they were taken. Subject to the provisions of RSA 91A3, minutes shall be promptly recorded and open to the public inspection not more than 5 days after the meeting, except as provided in RSA 91-A6, semicolon 6, or colon 6, sorry, and shall be treated as permanent records of any public body or insubordinate body thereof without exception. So really, what should happen is they should capture, Charlton talked about X.
Yeah.
And that's it. The verbatim part, we really, as an organization, it really probably is why we're having so much difficulty maintaining folks to do this work. Because I notified the board that at the next meeting, we need to discuss either a transcription service or having Phyllis do it to this level, because she can't get her other work done. She's spending hours, and I mean 10 hours, not exaggerating, all day Sunday.
To be clear, that's on the school board.
That's on the school board
Right.
side.
That
So I'm
isn't
saying
the
that for her to
budget.
transcribe that way is really hard to do well.
So for the benefit of the public who might be watching this, we met on June 7th. It was 4 months ago. The minutes were done by a secretary who resigned 2 days ago, and we are now going through them, and some people want to make some amendments to them, and those are being discussed right now, and then we'll vote on it. Okay, so the suggested amendment, I think by pretty much everyone's thinking is that it's not going to, we don't need to do that one. Are we on page 3? Is that correct, or on page 2? 3. Is there a page 4? I can't get my computer to hook up here.
Yes,
Yeah.
on mine there is, look at the page.
So page 4, I could note that I said October 12th incorrectly. However, I did say it. So I said Thursday, October 12th. Okay. So, yes, Cheryl?
All right, I'm gonna skip some of these. But again, the secretary wasn't here. She was trying to do this off of a tape, so there might be some inaccuracies. The paragraph just before number 7, committee comment. Healthcare, third line down. Healthcare has decreased in many cases over the year from 90 to 89 to 88. I say as percent. Because that's what it is, percent. I don't know if somebody said percent, but somebody reading this might not understand that.
Well, again, we don't, yeah, okay. So I think I said that? Or possibly Jack?
It's not attributed to anyone.
Okay. I know I have done a study over the years
Oh, yes,
of
it is. Yes,
other
I'm sorry.
districts, and it has gone down in other districts.
These are the collective bargaining agreements.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else? Okay, we're at 15 minutes of our hour, so I suggest that we move the question. Is that okay with everyone? Can we vote to approve the minutes as amended? And that would be unanimous.
I abstain, I wasn't here at the meeting.
Okay, and that's 6 in favor and 1 abstention.
Madam
Now-
Chair,
Go ahead.
Yes,
I would like to, once our secretary has got her pen, I would like to move that in the future, our minutes be much shorter, not quoting people, and actually be in the format as required by RSA 91-A:3.
I'll second.
Probably Roman numeral 1. You can get the subsection.
Charlie.
I just,
Because-
our minutes need to be a lot more concise.
Okay. Yes, Sandy.
In this same vein, I resigned from being secretary of this committee because I am not going to take minutes for that. We are volunteers, and I will not be quoting people, and I also will not sit in a meeting where someone wants to revise what was written when it was,
Best efforts.
yeah, I resign, and I nominate Cheryl.
And
Madam Chair, there's a motion on the floor.
Second.
That's an honest motion.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, and there's a second.
okay.
Discussion? Cheryl, would you like to be secretary?
No,
Okay,
I think we should
find
hire someone who understands that they need to come to the meetings.
we're
because
trying.
That's where they can, and there are times when our school board secretary will ask, can you clarify? Which I think is perfectly fine because
it's hard, though.
it's accurate, so. And if it, yeah, I mean, I don't mind that we don't quote people.
The job of the secretary is not to take the minutes at the meeting. Sandy graciously accepted to fill in because we had a 2-day notice. We are seeking to have a hired
Oh, I'm
secretary.
not talking about Sandy, I'm
Okay.
saying when we hire someone, we should tell them that this is not a job where we expect that you're going to sit at home and listen to and watch a videotape where it's very hard sometimes to really understand what's going on. It doesn't always come in clear.
I
And
believe-
think we have an
If I could just kind of cut you off a little bit on that.
Public to put.
I guess I can't.
things.
Cheryl, that is done by the HR people. That is not done here. That's done by the people who do the hiring for the district. Okay?
Can I make a suggestion that we, as the budget committee who has this person, ask that be put into the job description?
Okay, that sounds good.
The intent is they be here. I understand people can't always make it, but if they never come to the meeting, I think it's doing a disservice to the minutes that it's just going off of a videotape.
Yes, Sandy?
I'm still writing here, but I just resigned. Just letting you know, I resigned. I'm not taking minutes for this meeting anymore.
Oh, you're not taking for this?
Tonight?
No.
Ah,
Okay.
Here's extra paper and what I've written so far.
okay.
And we're
I've
having
done
a
it before. Is anybody else willing to do it? Okay, I'll do it. There is a motion on the floor
Yes, that's right.
to elect Cheryl as secretary against her wishes.
No.
Do
Jim's
you want to
motion.
No, my motion to,
It's not to, your motion is to, oh, I'm sorry, you had a,
my motion is
I was
to
going to
simplify
Sandy's.
the minutes in compliance with the RSA.
okay.
Can you write
Yes.
that out and give it to her at the end?
Okay,
Yes.
so.
Yes, okay.
And is that the motion that you seconded?
Yes, and I second.
I apologize. I
That's
thought
all
you were
right.
seconding, I
No.
thought you were seconding Sandy's nomination.
No, we're not going to do that.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
No.
I think Jim also included in his motion, I don't know, because nobody wrote it down, but I thought he said that we would not be quoting people.
That's in the RSA.
In your motion?
That's in the RSA, that it's intent.
Give me 2 seconds and I will finish writing it.
So while he's writing that, can I say,
Yes.
I hate to do this, but if we're going to do what we're doing tonight, I want a hard copy of minutes in front of every member when we come in.
Okay.
If we're going to be doing this. Paper copy,
Okay.
please. Sorry.
That's all right. Okay.
So well, he's also, what's our budget? What's the budget for,
We have, I think it's about $1,000. It's approximately 20 hours a week of
I was going to
work.
make a public announcement, what we're going on here, who we're looking for and what we'll pay them.
Right, okay.
So why don't-
It's $20 an hour,
$20, we're looking for somebody to take our minutes, $20 an hour,
and it's about 40 hours a year of work.
okay. And we,
So we're talking about somebody being able to earn about $800. They need to be able to type, to do Word and to be here.
and how many meetings we don't have that many meetings, just.
We have about 10 meetings a year,
About 10 meetings. So if
okay?
anybody's interested,
And I have put it on Facebook
yeah.
in
I've
various
just put it on
places. so,
here.
Yeah,
Well, Jim's writing that.
Carlton Swayze, Mr. PR.
Yeah, there you go.
good job, PR.
No, whatever.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I'll
yes. Will you want to restate your motion?
Exactly.
Just
And
give it to her.
No, it's okay, so we can vote on it.
I move that future minutes be in a simple, non-quotational format in compliance with RSA 91-A.
Very good.
Vote on the motion.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next thing on our agenda. I had a review of the team drive per your request, Cheryl. Have you figured out the team drive yet? You had suggested there would be folders. Let me say that you go into Google Team Drive and you sign in on Google as A. Collier at SAU17-net for your mail thing. I have several Google accounts, so I have to make sure I'm on the right one. When I do that and I go into Google Drive, the Budget Committee Team Drive comes up as one of the options on the left-hand side. You click on the Team Drive and you will see Budget Committee folder. The Budget Committee folder is divided into several major years. The one that we're doing right now is Planning for Fiscal Year 1920. Within that folder, there are a few folders. One of them is agendas, one of them is minutes, one of them is past information and current budget information. And then the other one, which has nothing in it yet, but will starting in November, is the proposed new budget. So you go into those folders in order to find the information. And hopefully that's very clear. I mean, the folders have been set up for a long time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is that clear for everybody?
No, but what if I don't want a Google account?
You have one. You already have your Google address at the SAU.
Oh,
So you don't need to set a new one. I'll be happy to, go over it with you.
okay.
Okay. The other part of that is that by request, we are having printed documents of some of the major stuff. We're not, of every little jot and tittle is not being printed, but of some of the major stuff. I also wanted to note that on the Team Drive yesterday, the day before yesterday, I had asked Michelle, and she didn't have time to do it, but I thought it was important for me to look at, was I added another column onto the year end of 17-18, and it was the current budget for 18-19, which is the one we're operating under right now. So I added another column. I married the spaces. There are some things that are different, so there are some spaces. I changed some of the description, and now it has not been vetted by anyone. It's, for my use. I think it's accurate, but, if you find something wrong with it, let me know. I also put up another document which was just taking the major categories of expense items and putting those up with last year, budgeted, amended budget, actually expended, and then this year's budget, so that we can look and see what changes there are. I thought it would help. I know it helped me to look at it, and so I hope it's helpful to everybody else. If it isn't, don't use it.
What is this called? What's the title of this document?
It's called Fiscal Year 18 and 19 versus 19. And there's one that's major categories, and there's one that's the whole thing. And it's also noted on there that they're done by me on October, whatever it was. Okay, public comment. Do we have
Left out Mr. Heath.
I'm sorry? Oh,
School board report.
I'm sorry, Larry, that was most
That's
inadvertent.
okay.
I apologize. Yes, Larry.
Well, actually, the school board report's going to be kind of short, because essentially the big thing that we're doing is looking for comments and suggestions from the voters to give us information on what they are looking at for the NASDAQ study. The more information we get, the better we can make a decision and do what everybody wants instead of just 3 or 4 people. And
Or 7.
or 7 people, 6 now.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we've been working on very hard is the policy committee, getting our policies up to date. And I would like to say publicly, thank you to the superintendent and his staff. We have finally got a procedure underway that is really starting to make time. And other than that, that's about it. Other than the day-to-day stuff, which is about as boring as you can get.
Would you like to comment on now 6? You said 7 people, now 6?
Okay, we had a resignation last night on the school board. So we are now looking for a additional person
From Kingston.
from Kingston.
From Kingston. So that would be important for people to start to know and to think about.
Yes, Karen Little. Karen.
So for the
Taryn
public,
Lytle, yep.
so for the public, what's the procedure and what's the time frame? So,
I think it's 2
yeah,
weeks.
you even know, I mean, you just gotta drop your lap.
It's
No,
just-
we do know because we had one last year, so we've done all the homework on it. The timeline is that the advertisement will go in the newspaper next Thursday, so it takes a week to get it published. We send it out immediately today. And then it will be, we will accept applications at the SAU office to fill this until the 1st of November. And then 2 weeks. I know it seems far away, but it's so, it's not far at all. And then after that, the 2 sitting members from Kingston will meet and interview the people that I don't know if they interview everyone who applies or the people that they feel are most qualified, but that piece remains to be seen. And then the position will be filled by the 2 sitting members of the Kingston.
And it will be to fulfill the term?
The term of the person that just resigned, which I don't remember how long.
No,
No,
it's
it's
actually
not.
not.
Only
It's
until
only
the
till
next-
March elections.
Oh, it's only until the March elections?
Yeah.
I apologize. That's
So
what
it's
I-
for the next 4 or 5 months.
5 months.
Yeah, okay. But it's critical 4 or 5 months for a lot of decision-making, so.
It must have been that when Larry came on that the person was done that March.
I think she had just a 1-year term.
And you're,
Yeah, 1 year left, so I didn't know that I thought it was to fulfill the person's term. I didn't know that.
And I'm sorry I couldn't give you more information. It just got dropped on me
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
literally found out 5 hours.
No, that's
last
fine.
night.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Larry. Public comment. There being none, we'll review the previously requested information for current and past budgets and where we are. I don't know if you've all picked up your packet of information at the SAU office, but we have that. Does anybody have questions on what we have at this point? Because I'd like to reiterate that our goals that we stated for doing the budget process, the process that we came up with was that we would deal with all past and current questions, current budget questions by the end of October, so that in November, we are no longer examining and asking the administration for old information. We are only looking at the new budget proposal. And it doesn't mean that we agree or disagree with anything that's been done in the past. It's simply that we understand how the money how it's happened. So just to make that really clear, this is not decision-making, this is information gathering.
So that would be questions on previous, not future.
Right.
Because we don't know what, we haven't got the budget
Exactly,
yet, so-
Right,
exactly.
that,
So it's
the
on
process
this
for that-
information that we've gotten.
Sorry.
Yes.
Would you like me to kind of talk about the process for the upcoming budget? Just, it seemed a little unclear there I'll just quickly say, Charlton, that the budget will be presented on November 7th. And the budget timeline that you adopted, the board did agree to adopt. And questions will be due by November 15th. And then answers to those questions will be provided at, I think, is it November?
29th, I think.
29th, the Thursday, the last Thursday in November.
At another joint
At
session.
another joint session,
Right.
a second joint session.
Okay. And then there could be subsequent ones. I mean, that's
Of course,
ongoing
of
through
course. I expect there to be
December.
more questions.
Right,
It's just,
yeah.
we're trying to kind of mirror the process that worked quite well last year to at least get the budget out, answer your questions, and then work through the process with you.
Okay, so at this point, what's on our agenda is to look at the information that we have gotten so far. And if, I haven't printed it because it's a work in progress, but in the team drive, you will see a communication between us and the administration on where we stand. The green items, there's green highlighted items that are still outstanding that they haven't given us yet. And we'll be getting those in the next week or so. So, I'll make sure, I know I'm not getting notification when something goes on the team drive, so I've asked Michelle to please let me know when something does, and then I'll let everybody know in case you're also not getting that notification. So does anybody have anything? Yes.
Just one thing I did notice in there, we ended up with $1.2 million surplus at the unexpended.
1.5.
1.5, okay.
Yeah. To be noted, the superintendent froze the budget in what? I'm sorry, Tom? February?
February.
Because there was a pending special ed issue where he might have needed a lot of money, so he froze it. So it's a little higher. It's typically been between 900 and 1.2 million over the last 5 years. So it's a little bit higher this year because of that freezing. For instance, you may notice that the internet access, the online fees,
Yeah, I saw
we
that.
had a $70,000 surplus of unspent money over the budget. That's because it was frozen. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's also because I've been telling people, if you don't need it, don't buy it. We need to talk about it.
That's
So
a good idea.
we had 3 students that we thought might go out of district, and that would have cost close to $600,000. And fortunately, our special education team and teachers worked really hard, as we always do, to keep children in the district because we want children to go to their home school if it's at all possible. So it's a real testimony to the hard work of Jody Gutterman and the 2 elementary assistant principals / LEAs, which are they represent the elementary assistant principals are half-time assistant principals and half-time special education coordinators. They worked really hard on this, and I just also think it's important to note that the board and my team, the rubber kind of hit the road with me saying to the administration, we're not spending money at the end of the year. So there would not have been in past years 1.5 million because they would have spent money on needs, and there were needs, and the board did fund the repair of the Swayze gym because it progressed from concerning to potentially very costly if it was left the way it was. So it
That
really,
was the roof, am I right?
the roof at the Swayze gym, if it had stayed in the state it was in, would have cost far more to repair later with further damages. So that they made the decision to fund that at the end of the year, which was a very difficult conversation because none of us wanted to do it, but it was an example of one of the emergencies that I'm concerned about when I talk about the fact that there are no clear emergency lines in this budget.
Okay. Can we go through the, kind of the packet of information? Does anybody have any comments besides me on the class schedule?
I think Mr. Doggett had his hand up, Annie.
Oh, yes.
I just, before we get off of that, are we going to receive some sort of documentation? Because the paperwork that we have says that the end of the year unexpended fund balance was 1.277, comma 32,000.
If you look at the DOE,
Can we please not use acronyms?
well, it's called the DOE 25. That's the name of the form.
Okay.
Department of Education.
Where are you
Yes.
getting that information you're quoting, Jim? What document was that on?
On the back page of
Right there.
monthly expenditures without help.
Right there. That one that you had in your hand.
Well, no, this is the DOE for 25, for 16, 17, 18.
Oh, okay, that's the grand total that you see, the monthly expenditures without help, 1277. Probably the difference is the help. I don't know, but that's probably the difference. Makes sense that you see that. On the form DOE 25,
Can I just say, Annie, that my business manager, Michelle, is very sad not to be here. She's sick.
oh,
She caught the thing that's going around, and she was in the office today, and I literally sent her home. I didn't want to catch it again, but she has another thing. So there's a lot going around, and if there are questions this evening that I can't answer on a technical end, Mr. Doggett always seems to have really good ones. I'm going to keep a document here to send to Michelle and ask her to email you all those answers, okay?
yeah, great. And I want to say that when I heard Michelle's voice yesterday, I asked her, please don't come.
Yeah, no, I get this. Yeah, it's not good.
I still don't know where
It's like flip to the last, flip to the last page, and then it's the next page.
You're looking for the 122, 1,000,002, Cheryl?
Yeah, that is on page 56 of the general fund revenue report.
Jim just answered you, did you, Jim?
It's the bottom
And where is that, Jim?
flip the stack over, it's page 56.
I will ask Mrs. Croto to get back to you as to what the amount is 1.5 at this time, but there is I don't want to get into the technical nitty-gritty of this because it's Michelle's expertise, but there is an amount that the board can withhold for future needs, and we're trying to figure out what that amount is, and we don't have that exact figure yet. We will email that to you. But that will be discussed at the October 24th board meeting.
I would have had to have been by statute done by the end day. That would have to be an encumbered amount of money.
I have a legal document from our lawyer, and I'm not gonna even go there because it's Michelle's expertise. I'm gonna let her handle that.
Okay, it's also
You have a
not our
question, Jim?
bailiwick, so,
Yeah, Jim, if you have a question, I'd be happy to get you the answer or a
Okay.
point. We aren't gonna break the law.
I
So
found where this preliminary unassigned fund balance is on the DOE 25. It's on page 1 at the bottom in blue, in mine it's in blue ink, and it's 1,504,483.28 And again, as was just said, that's preliminary, it hasn't been finalized at this point. Okay, so looking at the class schedule, any comments on the master schedule?
This is the high school,
Yes.
this is the current, as of today's date?
This is the current as of October 1st, which is the kind of official date. Actually, I'm sorry, the one you've got printed is not. The one that is on the website is. Mr. Ambrose realized he'd given me the one that was as of September, so there may have been some slight changes, but it's basically the same. So both of those are on the website, on our team drive.
To be clear, the sophomore learning team has 19 students per class, not 15.
Oh, okay, that's a
That's
big
big.
difference.
It's the
Okay.
whole team. So,
Okay. Okay. Anybody have any comments on it? I have comments on it. One of the things that we have as a major cost of our education, and that to me is being spent excessively instead of paying our teachers more money and having some of the professional development and some of the investment in our property that we put off year after year after year, is the very, very low student-teacher ratio. And what I see in this class schedule is one of the reasons why we have that. I know we also have a very low one at Memorial, but that's a matter of population, student population, and you can't have 39 kids in a class, so you've got to divide the classes, and some of them end up pretty small. But on this master schedule, we also see classes of 7, 8, 9 kids. And when I counted up the one from
Great.
September, I think it was the one from September, and we're going to verify this, but I counted up 136 classes that are under 19 out of a total of 262.
Did that have the sophomore group at 15? Because that's going to reduce that by almost 30 classes.
And it could. So as I'm saying, I think it was the
just want to be very
September
careful
one.
about that number.
Yeah. So let's assume that that's correct, and it's 106 out of 262 classes.
106.
Out of approximately 106 out of 262 classes are under 19 kids. That I excluded special ed when I looked at that. However, that's a substantial number of classes, and really, I hope that the school board will take a good hard look at that prior to budget season, so that that really be looked at as to whether we need to have that kind of structure.
And
So
just to be-
that's my comment.
It's 36 classes, so it would be 100 classes that are below,
100 that are below.
right? And we have 66 that are more than 20. So I did some homework on that too.
More than 20, but
More than 20.
25 is the number that we aim for as a maximum.
It's a recommended number. The policy is very, very vague.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very vague.
But I mean, the teacher's contract says no more than 25, or to aim for no more than 25.
Even that is very vague.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But I asked a question, this is just strictly for my information here. This is a problem that, yes, I identify it as a problem. The problem with the procedure is that there is nothing in it that says what the minimum number is. I would like you guys to tell me what you think the minimum number should be, just to give me a little background so when I start talking to the school board, I have something in my back pocket. So would you guys mind giving me some numbers?
It's a very good question.
It is.
Does anybody have any suggestions? Yes.
Minimum number would be either between 12 and 15.
12 and 15. I'd be higher than that.
Yeah, how do you get that?
This is what I'm asking.
Simply thinking to myself, there are certain classes
Right.
where you would have 15 students might be your max.
Like what?
How about a
Ceramic
lab
design.
course? That's what I was thinking, something like a lab.
Automotive.
You know, there are certain classes that are limited by the
Capacity.
capacity of the room. Our science classrooms used to be set up with 24 stations. I don't know how many there are presently. However, something like AP Calculus, I would expect that to be offered as one offering a year, and that one might only have 15 people in it. AP classes are usually smaller. There's something called Math UC that has three students in it.
What does that stand for?
I want to make sure that everyone knows that what I've done is I've asked Brian Stack to come to the joint meeting and answer all of these questions. I met with him for an hour today, and it got to the point where I said, why don't we create a shared document? And he said, nah, I just want to sit down and talk to people. So what I would like is for the BudCom and the board to read this, write down all their thoughts and questions. We'll give them all to Mr. Stack, and then he's going to come in and have a conversation during one of our joint meetings as part of the budget presentation, because this is a budgetary issue, right?
Yeah.
It's the nexus of all the issues, right? Because it's the budget issue, it's the student concern issue, it's the programming issue. It really is the heart of something that we need to discuss. So instead of me trying to recap 10 years of experience and what's happened and why, and explain to you the intricacies of the SST students needing to be out, but then still needing a math class, which creates a math class that's small. I'm not going to take that on, because it's really my job to make sure that I'm implementing what the board has asked us to do and what is within the budget. So I've asked Mr. Stack to come and just handle this issue.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So-
what-
and yes, and Larry has a question. Yes, Cheryl?
Would that be, you're asking him to do that at the budget presentation or at a separate meeting?
I'm asking him to do that during one of the joint meetings of the board and the BudCom during the budget presentations.
I would very much welcome that, because I appreciate you, Larry, asking us what numbers we think, but to be honest, I'm not a high school principal. I don't know what these acronyms mean. I don't know what Math UC, so I can't tell you a number in good faith, because I'm not educating these students. So I think Mr. Stack coming here and explaining what some of these classes are and why the numbers vary is something we absolutely need to know.
Well, essentially what I was looking for is some type of information, because like you, I'm not an educator. As a layperson, I would like to have the information that the people around me are thinking, because these are the voters. And if we have a kind of a straw vote count of where we think a good number would be, then when the professionals talk to us, we can see whether we're low or high and can adjust our thinking to that point. And actually, all I'm looking for is just a number that you think would be a comfortable class size.
Well, I think,
What do you think, Annie?
I think that if we were to come,
To-
oh, Sandy, yes? I'm sorry.
Well, I have the class size, the school board document regarding class size, which says It is the purpose of this policy to establish guidelines for class sizes in order to permit appropriate student instruction. And it says, the statement of policy, the school board is aware that class size has a bearing upon effective instruction, and it therefore directs the superintendent of schools to work with building principals to establish reasonable and equitable goals for enrollment in each class at all grade levels. In determining the size of various classes, the administration will consider the following factors. 1, the grade level of the class. 2, the experience and training of the teacher. 3, any unique requirements of the class, i.e. lab setting or level of class. Or 4, state minimum standards. Generally, the goal for classes at the primary level, grades K, will be not more than 18 students. Grades 1 through 3 will not be more than 20 students. In grades 4 through 8, the goal will be not more than 25 students. And at the high school level, the goal will be not more than 25 students in most academic classes. Specialized classes, such as those involving technology and classes for identified students, should have fewer students than academic classes. The district will adhere to all state laws and regulations pertaining to class size. In the event of scheduling conflicts, staffing shortages, space limitations, fiscal limitations, or other issues that prevent a classroom from adhering class size regulations, the superintendent or designee will contact the New Hampshire Department of Education and seek alternative compliance allowances through the applicable state procedures, and then it has the legal references. But as far as a minimum, because I work in a high school, there usually is a minimum that principals will determine
That's right.
as a group, because there's a lot of ineffectiveness if you do not have at least a group, usually 6 to 8 minimum. You know, we have AP Bio for 4 students. AP Bio is a fantastic class. It's going to be very different if you had 4 or you had 10 or you had 14. For the teacher and for instruction and for collaboration and labs and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a decision that the school board needs to determine. It is a budget issue, but the school board needs to figure that out with.
Well, I think everybody needs to figure that out and work together to come up with a number so we can tell the administration what they're looking at.
Exactly.
And having a minimum of some kind with the ability to go to the superintendent and for him to waive that would
That's
be
exactly
really
what
good. And if there's good and substantial reason to waive it, so what should be kind of a standard number? I would say 19 or 20 would be a minimum to aim for in a class. That would be my opinion. I look at Math 2 on line 219 with 2 classes of 6 and 8. And then another one of 18, and then another one of 11. And I'm saying, wait a minute, you know, this teacher is getting paid the same exact amount of money as the teachers who've got,
The next person down who has 18, 27, 26, 25, 13, and 15. To me, that looks like a union grievance just waiting to happen.
yeah,
So that's why Brian needs to come and explain that, because I can't tell you why there's no union grievance for that, right? But there's a reason, because 1 doesn't equal 1 when it comes to kids.
That's right.
If you have a kid that is really struggling, I would take 15 kids who aren't sometimes over spending hours and hours with that one. This might be students who are in the junior level who are really struggling with math, so they're in a smaller, I don't know. I specifically stopped Brian today and said, there's a reason why I'm the superintendent and you're the high school principal. I want you to come and explain it to people, because you can do it quickly, concisely, and then I think that what we're going to have to come up with is have a conversation about what the policy gives us no guidance about minimums. And I want to be clear that even within, if we do establish a policy around minimums, which would help guide the work, there has to be some flexibility for things like AP, physics. We need to do some more homework, but I just wanted you all to hear that I'm digging into it. That's the purpose of this conversation, is that I told you last year that I would continue looking at this, and I am. So I just wanted you to hear that as part of the process.
Madam Chair, in the meantime, could we please have some sort of listing that explains
Sure.
pre-calc CP, pre-calc UC, pre-calc C.
so we need the keys to this.
I'm looking at this, I have absolutely no idea. I understand what physics is.
Yeah.
But what is physics
CP
H
is
versus physics
honors.
CP?
We have leveled courses here.
Yeah, I will
CP is
get that
college
for you,
prep.
Jim.
But I look at
Just
games,
college prep, 8
I
is
look at
on.
games with 8 kids and Tech My Way with 7 kids, and I say, you know, this is web stuff. Why aren't they doing it by VLAX if that's the only number of kids that want to
Right, and
do
those
it?
are the assumptions that I
it's
don't want
just-
any of us to assume.
No, I'm
Because I don't know
asking the
what's in there. We
question.
look, right, I know, and that's what I'm saying is that I did the same thing, Annie, and that's why when I got talking to Brian, I thought, this isn't good for me to explain this. I'd like him to come do that today.
Okay, good. Yes, Charlton.
It's hard to come up with a number, because for one thing, and I think it might have been Jim that said it, there's some classes just physically have a limitation, and I look at the shop classes. You can only have so many kids in that room. That's right. 20, you're not gonna get 20 kids in the welding class or in that shop. I mean, it's one of the things I get a lot of involvement in it, so there's gotta be some flexibility in that area, if
I
nothing
mean,
else.
woodworking with saws, right, Charlton?
Yeah, I mean, that room's only so big and you can't have 20 kids in there running around. So
Exactly.
we gotta have flexibility there.
Well, it's the same-
However,
yeah, sorry.
I agree the number should be much higher. I think it's 19, 20 range. And I would add, if Brian's gonna come in and talk about this and make some concessions and agreements that some of these classes are way too low, fine. If he's gonna come in and just do a sales job, I'm not interested.
I'd
I'm
say,
not interested.
I'd say ditto on that. I don't want to hear a justification.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah.
hear kind of what else can be done.
Yeah.
Because I look at Intro to Philosophy with eight. That's not a core class. No. You know, 8 people. I mean, sorry. So I have some real questions about it. I don't know what the impact would be of these 100 classes, but you know, it's something that I'm glad you're digging into. Yes, Sandy.
Under world language, I'm happy to see some changes in that. That's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
And
We did cut that position to be part-time at the high school and part-time at the middle school.
Yep.
And we did the same with chorus. So and we reduced the family and consumer sciences position and moved some of those standards into health. So you can't see that in the numbers the way that you would see if you reduced an English class and saw each class went up by 5. What happened is it does bump kids into more electives in other areas, and it did cause, we have a very high number of students who are taking dual enrollment courses to the point where I had to actually scrape around and find money to fund more this summer. It was awesome. So it's just wonderful that these kids are taking college classes. And the other thing that it did is we do have a very high enrollment, in the SST program, which is amazing. But that only accounts for half their school day. So they still have to fill classes the other half. And I'll tell you, the hardest part about a master schedule at a high school, which I know, Sandy, you get this 100%, is figuring out how to get their core classes when they're in a vote program.
exactly.
It is really hard. And our district is at this kind of funny point where we're not really small enough to really reduce, but we're not big enough to justify everything either. And we're gonna feel some pain for that. Right? It's hard. It is. And
So-
Brian did reduce 3.5 positions, so he worked hard to do that.
Okay, let me just, we really need to kind of.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
But, so the answer to this one is, it's being looked into. So good, and we're going to get
And
answers.
I've got some good numbers, so that's good.
Okay. The DOE 25, does anybody have any comments on that?
What is this?
It's a form that is filed with the Department of Education. It's a mandatory form, and the DOE, and the MS-25 is almost the same form, but that's filed by, with the revenue, I think. But basically, it's a lot of detail.
Actual numbers. Actual numbers.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. These are post-audit numbers. Okay, the only comment I had on that was the 1.5 million that's left over, that's a preliminary number, but it's a substantial number. And that the middle school plant, as of last year, was $515,000 cost, and Mr. Ambrose and Ms. Croto at the school board meeting said this year it's budgeted at $535. So that's a number which is kind of pretty stable, but also obviously increasing slightly year by year. The middle school plant. Plant. Building.
Cost of operating it,
Building.
gas,
Cost of,
Facilities.
electricity, gas, stuff like that.
God. It's,
I've not seen this document, so when you're referring to these things.
you haven't seen it? It's been online, I'm sorry. Okay.
From the MS-25?
Yeah.
What number? Do you know? Somebody know?
It is.
Let me find it. Yes. On page 8, operation maintenance of plant, 515,000. Oh, you know what? Actually, you know what? I read that wrong. That's actually student transportation for the middle school, and so I don't know what the operation for the plant was last year.
Well,
That's my mistake. I
I'll tell you
apologize.
that it does go up and down some based on fuel and electricity, but what was asked is, should the NESDEC study move forward and we close the middle school facility in some fashion? Because again, the board has not even asked us to do a full research yet. That's probably going to be discussed at the next meeting, which I do strongly encourage you all to attend. The operating cost of the middle school is approximately, because Michelle says there's Tom numbers and then there's Michelle numbers. Michelle has very precise numbers, and I'm saying approximately $535,000 to operate the building, heat, electricity, and things like that.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the salaries and benefits page. Does anybody have any remarks on that? The only thing I have is that the benefits are approximately 50% more than the base salary. Just so that the public knows that. Yeah.
I would expect the school board to comply with the past warrant article this year that Jack Kozak had sponsored regarding the disclosure of salaries
We did.
on this year.
No, benefits are not on that.
They cannot be.
A total benefits number?
No.
If they can be.
The benefits total could be released. It's not part of the warrant. We got legal guidance on that.
Okay.
So we presented, Jack Kozak did a right to know request last spring, and we put it on the web and gave him a copy of the parts that are legally required for us to give to him per our legal counsel. We cannot disclose benefits. We can give you the total benefits for anything you want because it doesn't identify people, but we gave him the information, and I believe it was given to the BudCom as well, but if it hasn't.
Yes, we have it.
I believe the warrant article says it's supposed to be published in the report.
Yeah,
Yes,
the trouble
we'll
is
add
with
that to
warrant
the report
articles.
this year, Charlton.
I just
Excuse me,
wanna read
let's
that.
not have
I
a,
just want that reinforced.
Thank you. Yes, we
Okay.
will add that to the report. We did not know that last year.
yeah.
Yep, we're happy to do
Okay.
it.
You didn't know
And,
it.
what?
You didn't know it.
Yeah.
Other people did.
Jim has his hand.
Okay.
Okay.
Jim has his hand.
Yeah, Jim.
Jim?
Madam Chair, I gave the superintendent this evening the salary information as provided by the previous superintendent.
Okay.
I requested that in the future, we receive it in the same format.
Okay.
When's in the future?
I would just like to say that
Without,
I'd like to point out that that's really a citizen's role to want that information and a voting role. It's really not a budget committee role. We are not going to say who gets what and how much they get and, you know, what their percentages are. So I fail to see the relevance to the budget committee. I understand that it's relevant to people individually that you want to know it. But as a budget committee member, putting on that hat, do we really need to know how much each person is paid?
quite honestly, yes,
not by
because what
name.
I've always done with this document was to go through and re-aggregate it to match the numbers that are being presented in the budget. Because according to this, this tells us everything from contracted salary, cell phone allowance, design studio, coaching stipend, health waiver. This gives an entire breakdown, and these should all add up to the numbers that are being presented to us in the budget. And if you recall in the past, and it may have been before your time, I have gone ballistic when the salary lines add up to over $1 million more than the salary sheets that are provided for us.
Okay.
And it
But
wasn't
that would
covered
be
by.
salary, but is that also travel and, you know, all of the benefits? or-
I would add all of that up and find large discrepancies.
Okay. We do
Wanna make
have
a motion?
audited numbers for last year, but you know, I don't know. I'm not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it, but you have a right to ask for it. As a budget committee member, I, for one, see no need for us to spend a lot of time on individual benefits.
See,
And I understand you disagree with that.
Well, it's not individual. Does not include health care, which is a benefit. But that is part of my due diligence as a budget committee member, that I actually sit down and do this.
Okay.
We'll put that in the form of a motion.
So, no, instead of a motion, what I'd suggest is that if that's important to you, that you put that in a document, send it to me, and I will put it together with information that we're asking the administration for. If they can legally provide it, then they will. So, let's do it
I'll
that
take
way.
it one step further. I already took a picture of what Jim gave to me and emailed it to Michelle and said, this is what Blake used to give them. Is there any problem with that?
Okay.
I've already done that step tonight.
Yeah, it's legal,
This
because
isn't-
trust me,
Look, yeah.
the former superintendent would not have given us a document, especially not that concise.
Yeah, I think that the difference is, and what Jim and I talked about last
Well
year,
taken.
just to kind of reiterate the conversation last fall, for Larry's benefit being new, the gist of the situation is that there are areas in these contracts that we can't adjust. You can't adjust them.
Right.
I can't adjust them. It's a waste of time because they're contracted, right? They're in either the teacher's contract. For example, if you don't take our health benefits as a school teacher, you get $3,600. Doesn't matter. But what Jim's saying is that he wants to add them all up. I don't know about any discrepancies or what that would look like. That's a Michelle question, because I do know that oftentimes we would budget for one position, and then if we get a bunch of people who leave in August, we may hire at a much lower level, which then there would be a budgeted amount that would be higher than what we hired. Or if we get lucky and I can recruit people, it might go the other way for some of them. I don't know what the...
I accept that there is a delta of variance in there.
Yeah.
In the past, we have carried positions that were unfilled.
Yeah.
We have carried maximum benefit options for, how to explain it? We would carry enough income in the insurance benefit line so that if everybody suddenly got married and had a family of 5, we would meet the requirements for their contractual needs.
Right.
Even though it would be an impossibility.
Sure. There's got to be a modicum of logic
And that
reasonableness.
was, and we would,
I don't know the answer, but I'm certainly...
one of the
Yeah.
problems is when you're looking at $1.5 million, and I'm thrilled that it was left over at the end of the year, and I'm thrilled you froze the budget and we survived. We used to have in excess of $2 million left over at the end of the year. And it was only through spotting these things that you could go, you know what? Can you reduce the contingency aspect of that line?
Got it.
Yep.
Good.
We can talk about it.
Okay, good points.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Jim something. Do you feel confident you're going to get what you want? I don't want to be back here at the next meeting.
I gave the superintendent a copy of this. We've all received this in the past. This was the last copy that
I'm
I've
just,
never seen that.
Superintendent Blake
I
gave
was
us.
new last.
I'm just fearful we're not going to get this.
And-
Somehow it's going to get filtered out somewhere.
I don't
gave
think
him a
that's the
copy.
response we
I
got.
have 20 plus years of these.
All right.
So I would like to think
So
so.
Jim, there's a question that's been asked of you. Do you feel confident that the
wanted
superintendent and Michelle are going to
Yes,
give you
I
everything
feel
that they can
confident he is
according
going
to what you've
to
asked for?
because he knows what happens otherwise.
When,
Because I'm afraid or because I have ethics? 'Cause I'm not afraid, Jim. Just want to be clear.
I already have some sheets that I hereby request under RSA 91.
Okay, let's move
Go
on.
that route and we'll have a wonderful...
I didn't throw those out.
this is, I don't want to move on. This is important. This is where
Okay.
we went afoul last year.
All right, what's important is to...
That this is resolved and we know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I still feel a little uneasy about it. I think it's a valuable document to have for everybody. Anything that involves money is the budget committee's thing reason to look at. And maybe I glean one thing out of it, maybe I get nothing out of it. So I don't want this to be left, I feel, unresolved. And that's why I'm asking Jim, if you're comfortable with it, fine. I don't want to have to file a right to know request.
I am
next meeting.
comfortable as long as I don't get the document that I got about a month or so ago with a name and
Total.
a total. And actually, it wasn't a total. It was
just a salary.
Just a salary,
contractual
yeah.
Right.
amount.
Okay.
Because and it's a good time to bring it up, I gave everybody this evening a copy of Margaret Barnes' article that was in the bar review regarding the default budget, particularly as it pertains to unsanbornized contracts. And the fact that any increase in a non-sanbornized contract cannot go into the default budget. So that means that a lot of these people, anybody who does not have a union contract that is separately approved as a warrant article, their pay increases for next year are not part of the default budget.
I don't think they ever have been, and not while I've been around here.
They used to be regularly.
Oh, okay, but they haven't been in the last 4 years, I can tell you that, because, I mean, it's been level. So,
No, last year we had administrative pay raises was part of the default. Well,
The default?
Last year we didn't get the default contract until we had a chance to break it out.
okay,
But in the previous year, the administrative pay raises was part of the default contract. The default budget.
well, one of the things that, I don't know if everybody knows, but a lot of stuff in the district is now, more stuff is even going to be Sanbornized now because we have a new union as well. So we have, the administrators have a union, so that's going to be approved by the voters too, individually,
When did that happen?
Yeah.
during the summer. So,
District you're talking about?
yeah, the district administrators, not Mr. Ambrose, not Michelle, not Mr. Trammell, not Jody, is Jody in? No, but pretty much most of the administrators are in a union now, a Teamsters union, I believe.
Mistake.
Can't comment about it.
Okay, you can't tell me if it's a Teamsters union?
Can't talk about it at all right now.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. We
No,
can't-
I can't. You can, it's fine.
Okay.
It's- it's- there's some
Just so
stuff
you know
that's
that there's
Just-
that, so
just one question
those,
you can
any
answer, has it
increases
been
that the voters
certified?
vote in,
Yes.
Okay.
any multiple year contracts that the voters vote in for professional staff, for support staff,
being careful. I just don't know what I can say.
or administrative staff will be part of the default if they're voted in by the.
If they're voted in.
Multi-year contracts.
So that leaves the only ones that hang out there are the
Top administrators
top administrators.
and the custodians
Yeah.
are not in
They're
the
with
contract.
the
Right.
SAU
Yeah,
group.
so,
I thought they were, yeah, I
They
think
are.
custodians are a part of the,
No.
no, they haven't been unless they've joined it.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Part of your
Custodians
group.
and the SAU personnel
Yes, yes.
are not unionized.
All right.
We're not unionized.
Are we okay to move on?
Okay,
Jim?
okay?
Yeah.
Cheryl, do you have to leave now? I'm sorry that you won't be able to stay today. Hopefully the video will turn out so you'll be able to see it and the minutes will be so great that you'll know what's going on. I'll do my
Looks like
best.
you're almost done.
Well,
Close.
actually, we have a little bit more to do. Looking at the school district profile, does anybody have any comments on that or any questions on it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
No, I just remember looking at it. now.
I have one that I'd like to say. I'd like to point out that there is a separate cost per student for elementary, for middle, and for high. For the elementary, it's 19,000 plus. For the middle school, it's almost 18,000. For the high school, it's about 16,000. The district total is 17,800.
The average?
Average.
The average. So what I wanted to just say is that there was a recent school board meeting where a woman stood up and waved a bunch of paper around and said, look at the numbers, I can see a whole bunch of numbers. This was done in the past by school board members too, comparing elementary schools, which are much higher, to Sanborn. That's just not a valid comparison. It's not what the Budget Committee has done. What the Budget Committee has done is to compare comparably sized districts, K through 12, plus or minus 25% of the student population. And one of them that we've had in there is Oyster River. We've gone down, they've gone up, they're no longer comparable for us. So, they've got 2,200 students and we've got 1,600. So, that shifts from year to year, but we try and find, and also we look at surrounding communities. We do not compare ourselves against Claremont. That's not a comparable community, and that was done in the past. So, yes, Cheryl.
Where was this?
This is on the school profile, right at the top of the page of the school
What is
profile.
the source of this information?
Oh, this is from Michelle. This is the information that she has submitted to the State Department of Education.
Which is preliminary.
It's
It will get
preliminary.
adjusted.
All this stuff is preliminary. It
Preliminary.
gets published in January.
Right, but this number has to be presented to Fremont by, I believe it's November 1st.
There's a tuition amount for Fremont,
Right.
but it is different.
Okay.
I'm going to make a request again that when we get these documents, that the source please be put on and dates be put on, because we're going to be getting a lot more information and things are going to get very confusing and mixed up. So Michelle, this is something,
I want to make sure that you all know, if you ever have a question, just email Michelle, she'll help, or email Annie, and Annie will ask Michelle. There's a lot of documents, and some of them Michelle doesn't give you, but whatever we can, we'll put the date and who gave it to you, just because it makes it quicker. I think it's a great idea, Cheryl, thanks.
Thank you.
and these costs per pupil are figured by like a standard
There's a
formula
yeah.
that all schools, districts use?
Yeah. I also wanted to note on there, on section 1200, special programs, and again, preliminary number, but special programs, special education is 17.2% of the budget. We don't touch that.
Nope.
We have no authority over that. So 17% of the budget we have no authority over. And most of the staff salary levels we have no authority over, except just to vote yes or no when the time comes for approval. Nobody else had anything to say on that, so I wanted to go on to this monthly report. The monthly health insurance is not much, but we have the general revenue fund. The first thing that I see on it is on the page 1, this is the general revenue part. On 10/13/21, it shows that the Fremont amount paid is actually $65,000 less than was originally thought. That was negotiated out with Fremont during the year. There'd been a dispute about what it was.
Yep.
And they worked out an answer, so that's what it's about. The other thing that I noted on here is on the second page, on 10/52/70, it shows that the use of fund balance of $1,125,000. I asked Michelle about that. I said, what is that? Is that something we have to worry about funding? How does it work? She said that it's just the way it's been done. She thinks she's probably going to be changing the way that that's accounted, because she thinks it's pretty confusing, the way it's been done. So the confusion remains, but no, we don't have to make sure we come up with that money.
That's a big number to be confused about.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's just, the way it's said, and she agrees.
No, yeah, she said that she's going to report it different, to be accurate, she's going to report it differently in the future because it is not well-defined in those documents. She did not like the way that's laid out, and we'll adjust that accordingly.
Okay.
She agrees with you, Jim.
Does anybody have any kind of other, I have some more, but does anybody have any others on the year-end results?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not that it's really, I keep getting asked this question, Mr. Ambrose, when's the Fremont contract expire?
7 years from now.
7 years more?
Yes.
I get asked all the time, okay. Some people think it's next year, so.
No,
7
it's
years.
20 years.
7 years, folks.
It's coterminous with our debt structure for the
7
high school, I
years.
believe.
It is.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, on the 17-18 budget, I noticed in going through that custodial is always, it happens every year that I've been looking at the budget, that custodial is over budgeted. And I pointed this out to Mr. Ambrose. It's, by about $130,000. And I'm just wondering why that continues to be the case, looking for justification, looking for reasoning. Is that money that can be reallocated? And so he told me he's going to look at that.
Yeah, or Michelle's looking and researching it, and
Okay.
it really, she's got to talk to Steve,
Yeah,
so she's working on it.
okay. Online access fees, unspent, were $60,000. And we had a big discussion last year about cutting that online access fee by $10,000, and then it ended up being that $60,000 was left over. Would you care to comment?
Yeah, so I did what I told you I would do. I created
Oh, I don't know.
I'll wait till Charlton's, he's finding out where she is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just trying to
it's important, yeah, I'd rather do it once.
I don't know. I think, I don't know. I didn't write down what page. I think it's in a couple of different pages, and that's a total of online. Yes, it was. It was a total of online access fees from all the various schools and districts. and so forth.
So what I did was I asked, again, when I do this kind of work, I like to go to the people who are actually using things as much as possible so that we don't accidentally change something that has a repercussion that was unforeseen. All the librarians kind of work in the buildings. It's weird. Library sciences aren't really just about managing the library anymore. There's a big technology component to that in terms of software, as you can imagine, and research being more software-based. So the librarians interfaced with the tech department and different teachers and team leaders and put together, we had created this big spreadsheet of all the different software that we could come up with in the district. And then we went through it and figured out, A, what was being funded, B, what was on a multi-year contract, C, what needed more research, and D, what isn't being funded adequately, so that we're kind of reflecting that. I did find out that the previous administration purchased a $50,000 subscription with grant money for an online resource for elementary students as a result of this work. And that has not been renewed for this year, right? I'm not paying $50,000 for an online subscription. It wasn't effective. So they did it with grant money, but it was being put out there. And I just made it clear to folks that, look, pay for what you need right now and hold off until we can get a better handle on this. So the next phase of this is we didn't find a lot that was like overexpended or odd per se. But there were some areas that the teachers and the librarians felt could be reduced so that other things could be added to or covered that needed to be done. So they did a really good job of kind of maximizing the efficiency of the funds. As part of the budgeting process, we'll be reviewing that for a budget recommendation. What they're telling me is that there's some things from the tech department that need to be added in light of some of the cuts that we made. So it'll probably come out similar to where it was last year. But definitely, I feel like it's been looked at very closely and much more efficient.
Thank you.
Andrew has her hand up, Annie.
Sandy?
So one of the things that you also promised to do was to talk to the teachers and to review duplication of programs and also software programs that we're paying for that are actually not being utilized. And Cheryl made, we discussed making a rather large cut. And so where are we at with that? What did you find out? And did you find duplication? Did you find collaboration or?
I'm sorry, I thought that's what I just said. Yeah, that's exactly what we did. We went through it, and there weren't really necessarily duplications, but there were collaborations. And what I really was going for, to keep it even simpler, is, are we using this?
Right.
How often and by how many people? And do we need to keep it? So, for example, Dreambox was the program that was purchased with the grant money for $50,000. It's a great program. We weren't using it enough. Bakey was using it some, but other places weren't using it at all, and I couldn't justify even remotely putting that $50,000 in the budget to purchase it again. So that's an example of something that some people were using. There have been, one thing that Michelle and I did this year for the budget, and Michelle, I wish she was here tonight, she's created the Google documents that I talked to you about, where we're kind of saying to Bob Ficker in the tech department, we know your technology and you don't handle all the little pockets of software, but you're budgeting them now. Right? They still exist in the school's budget, but he's responsible for double checking. We had to assign, this is such a huge problem here because it wasn't being monitored accurately. We went from all over the place schools having, like, some teachers just literally buying software with their classroom budget or working with their principal, and then district software, and then building software, to having at least a housing place for, we feel is 99% or 95% of all of the software. And it really has come very far, but we went from kind of what I felt was a little bit chaotic to pretty well structured, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't require a little more refining. So the budget process this year is to look at what you just described at another level, right? And so what I did was I asked Bob Ficker to work with Michael Turmel, because Michael knows the academic component and Bob knows the technology component, to make sure that it's being used effectively and to the best. Teachers have too many software programs in all schools. I walk into a teacher's classroom and I say, how's it going? And they're like, well, look at my computer. I've got 9 tabs open. I'm like, well, why don't you put that away and just let's get some books out and do some writing and talk, right? And they're like, thank God, right? I mean, it's not like they're resisting that idea. They just want permission to do it. So I want to make sure if we're asking them to do it, that it's actually making a difference in goal setting for specific student work, not just to do it because we say we're hip and we're using the newest computer thing.
So all the subscriptions are inventoried.
We have inventoried them all.
Okay,
And
that's a good
honestly,
place to
it
start.
wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be honest with you. I really thought it was going to be all over the place. There were only a few things that got cut, that we said we're not using that, or it's duplicate, or we don't have to. It really was more figuring out what's going to get teachers. I view software as helping teachers to differentiate for kids. And so this is not just a one-year project, but it's way better than it was when I met with you last year. And I feel like it's not over budgeted or under budgeted, but if we budget it and then I save us money, I just appreciate that you all hear that I'm trying not to spend money when we don't have to, right? Because sometimes folks get nervous about having some left over in a budget line because they might get said, well, you didn't really need that in the first place. Well, that's not really fair, because we're trying not to, when we're trying to be conservative, that's a good thing, because it goes back to the taxpayers at the end of the year.
Yes.
I think the reason that certain board members had concerns about this is last year we added $50,000 to that line item in the budget. If you remember, one member of the board.
Last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah, we had 10,000.
No, we cut it and
cut
then
it,
we
but-
added it back
Then we
in.
added-
yeah, we cut up 10,000.
Right, but what wasn't there a 50?
No.
It had gone from 209 to 240. Okay, it may not have been 50,000, but it was a
It
substantial.
was 30-some thousand, and
But that was something, that was a specific thing, as I recall. That,
Right, but
that wasn't really,
we were told that area, until it had been studied, could not take any reduction.
right.
Now we know that there's a $50,000 program that's not going to be supported.
And
Right, but
fortunately,
that
they
was
didn't
grant
do it.
funded, and it was in that area, but it doesn't mean that line's gonna come back this year 50,000 less. That does not mean that. It means that I'm not moving forward with purchasing that program again. It wasn't budgeted that way previously. It was grant funded. It wasn't locally funded, but it would have been in that area. So
Okay.
I will keep working through this, and I will walk you through this as we go through the process, because I know it's important. But I think it's important for everyone to understand that we are going to look at software closely and make sure that those lines aren't over budgeted. The trick is we're still getting a handle on what's a 2-year subscription, a 3-year subscription. It seems easy, but there's 100 of them, and they're housed in all these different spots. I'm just simply saying that the Bob has some needs in that area this year. The state is requiring him to do some $15,000 software safety. It's an unfunded mandate that he's working on, and he's hoping and praying that it ends up being in next year's budget, because he doesn't have it in this year's budget. But if that happens, then I'm going to have to freeze something else. This is just the nature of budget being a map, and then things come up and you have to kind of adjust. But I would be happy to continue. I've asked Michael and Bob to go through that all again this fall in preparation for a budget presentation. I'm sure I'll have more for you in November on the 7th.
Okay, Michael being the
Curriculum.
curriculum, I don't know what his fancy title is.
Director of Academics and Student Affairs.
And Mr. Turmel, and then Bob being Bob Ficker, the technology director.
Yes, the two of them will be working collaboratively.
Okay.
I just wanted it assigned to someone to manage, so I know I can ask, I'll have them come here and talk about it, instead of me trying to decode it all.
Okay. I also noticed that there were a series of over-budget spending on structures during the year. 27,000 for Bakey, 7,000 for middle, 36,000 for Memorial, 46,000 for high school, and 159,000 for the district, which I believe was the warrant article for the Swayze floor, for the Swayze ADA compliance.
Yes.
So that one was, that one was funded by warrant, but the other ones were kind of overspending, and that amounts to a lot of money. And, it's kind of like that money was found. Obviously, it was needed, boilers and things like that, but it wasn't part of the original budget. And it also is not something that goes in automatically as a, assuming that's going to be needed in the future.
And that is exactly why the first thing I'm asking for as the new superintendent of this district is to develop emergency funds for our district. If they don't get spent, they stay level, and when they do get spent, the board approves them. It's not like it's a slush fund, but what happens with this kind of thing when you have this mess of a boiler literally shutting off and no heat at the high school, and you have to find $40,000 on a day's notice, is not an effective way to run a $35 million organization. It's honestly a little unnerving. And so we will be discussing that at length through the budget process.
That's good.
It doesn't mean that it has to all be funded in 1 year, and it doesn't mean that we aren't going to look for efficiencies, such as potentially reorganizing our facilities, right? I mean, we have to find ways to fund these things that are reasonable to the taxpayers, but I just need everyone to hear me and understand that we do have real legitimate emergencies. For example, we had a number of kindergarten students move into Bakey this summer in August. We got really close to needing to hire a teacher in August. It didn't happen. We got lucky. Some kids moved out, it leveled out, and that happens. It kind of came in, sliding into third base, so to speak. We don't have emergency funds to hire a teacher for something like that. It doesn't exist. So I want, what I want is transparency.
Yeah, let's kind of move on with the budget stuff. Thank you.
Right, but this is why, though, you asked a question.
No, I didn't.
about
I made
capital.
a comment.
Right, but I'm responding to your comment because I want people to understand that the reason why those large sums of money had to be spent without being budgeted, which was your comment, is because there isn't a clearly defined, transparent emergency fund for capital needs or regular ed needs or technology, and the special ed one is tiny.
Okay, good comment. Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, can I say one more thing on the facilities?
You're the chairman.
Yeah, that I attended a facility subcommittee meeting, and one of the things that is being done is that Mr. Riley is doing a new CIP list of needed estimates and, would be good, and maybe we should look at this in the future. So he's looking at, a prioritized list with real numbers instead of the numbers that were put forward in that CIP, which were really, really high. We also aren't having to pay him. We never found out when we asked for a vendor list. Marinades was never listed on the vendor list as one of our vendors that year, and yet they did the CIP and clearly got paid for that. So but that's the old administration, and that was just that was an admission. However, I'd like to point out that we don't have to pay Mr. Riley extra money to do that. He's doing it as part of his job. So, and he also knows the facilities. So, and he's not looking to bring things up to current code as though they're being built today. He's looking at student safety and not height. Yes.
The previous comment by the superintendent of schools reminded me of something that I want to see for this year, and that is we already have a special ed, a facilities. Help me out here. It's
We don't have
capital reserve funds. We need to get the list of all of those and what they contain presently, because the special ed should be in the 350 to 400,000 range. The
and I think it's about 250 or something.
No, it's about 195.
195, yeah, so.
Okay, well, it would be interesting to see, because we built that up over 250,000. If money has been removed from it, we need to know.
Well, and the facilities fund, we know that we recommended last year to the school board that they spend some of that money for some of the facilities stuff instead of putting it in the budget.
Right.
and it's been replenished by rents, and we need to know kind of what that flow of funds is.
Exactly.
The money coming in and out. And,
Because I'm not picking on any speaker, but it sounded like we had nothing. You know, we do have something.
But it's just a concern, yeah, okay.
It is a concern.
Okay, the other thing that I note, oh, I'm sorry, Charlton, you had something you wanted to, I apologize.
No, I don't want to launch into a discussion tonight about these emergency contingency funds. I'll just save it for committee comment.
Okay. I also noticed that athletics had $5,700 left over, and they also found the money, thankfully, to spend an extra amount on equipment. I know some equipment purchases were deferred, but this is over and beyond. So I'm hoping that Vicki will be able to keep her budget pretty level and still fund some of these extracurricular and co-curricular activities that, the kids really need in these towns, instead of having to take it to warrant and decide whether ice hockey should be an extra. I suspect there's some money in the current budget that could be reallocated that way, and we will find out.
That's
I was just about to say that. More bass fishing.
Yeah.
We're going to find $1,000 this year for bass fishing. You can't find $1,000 in this budget.
Well, I mean, and, the ice hockey and just some,
Well, ice hockey.
I mean, there's several different ones that kids are involved in that, I happen to think that we need extra and co-curricular activities,
It
so.
was part of my entry plan.
Okay, is there anything else on this paper? I wanted you to know also, just briefly, that in the year-to-year comparison that I came up with, I noticed that school board services and other school board services were two areas that were really, really high this last year, and I want to know why. So, I just want to know the answer to that. Superintendent services went way up. Tom, did you verify whether that's got the professional development money in it? Is that money?
Michelle's working on it. She couldn't get to it today.
Okay.
She'll get it to you before the next meeting. I mean, it's not.
In a conversation, we thought maybe that was the case, but we don't know.
No, I don't think it is. She's working on it.
Okay, so we need the answer to that.
I'd like to make a recommendation when we're looking at variances, to say something is way up or that it's $7,000, it's all relative to what was budgeted. I think if you look at something as a percentage of what's been budgeted, or what, as a percentage of deviation, that gives us a more accurate depiction of exactly what we're looking at here. Is it
realistic.
is it bigger than a bread box, or
Okay, the school board services is budgeted at about $10,000, and it came in at like $26,000.
Yeah, even at 15.
Okay,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
160% increase
But I think
is.
it's important to put it in perspective when we
Okay.
talk about these things, because it can be taken out of context.
I
It can
think
be
the other school
shocking
board
and
services
alarming.
is legal, but I don't want to go on record yet. I'm just waiting for her to get back to me.
That was my guess. Just-
Yeah.
I had two other things that I saw on there. One is summer programs is a new line item in this year's budget. I asked Michelle about that, and summer programs weren't tracked before, and it's just an accounting
No,
change.
they were tracked. They're just tracked differently now. We wanted them to be put into a very, again, transparency. We're trying to create areas where you can see, this is what we're spending on special education summer programming, right? It was in the housed within the budget in kind of a way that just didn't feel as transparent as we would have liked it to be.
Okay. If the professional development is not in superintendent services, I'd like to find out where it is,
Yeah, Michelle said that she was going to get that all to you.
because I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's there.
I didn't see it anyplace.
And by the way, it's doing amazing things that I'll fill you in on later.
And then the other thing was a question on transportation, which you said you're going to be taking a look at, and I know you eliminated one bus route this year.
I did.
Do you have any
Saved
further
37.
comments on transportation?
Yeah, it was a nightmare. People were really angry over one bus stop, and there were maybe, over one bus being reduced, which affected a handful of bus stops. And I just think it goes back to the point that as with many community organizations, people don't get involved until they have something that affects them directly and upsets them. And I explained to people that we have had numerous conversations, and this is a perfect example because our special education grant came back short about $45,000, so the bus run saved $37,000, so we paid for a para for the special ed program that had to be funded. So as Mr. Doggett said, I want to be correct, that we do have about $200,000 which is the equivalent of one out-of-district placement in special education.
Yes.
We could have one kid move in and eat that money in one student. So that $37,000 offset the cost of a special education para. It kind of feels uncomfortable, but it did work. It worked out fine with the busing once it was all settled. And people were getting confused about, is it the fact that a bus was cut that's made the first week of school a little tricky, or is it just the first week of school being a little bit tricky? Well, sure enough, after a few conversations, we straightened everything out and it was fine.
Okay,
So-
good. Are you continuing to look at transportation?
Yeah, we will do, if the middle school facility is closed, we're going to ask them to wipe the map clean and completely rewrite the bus routes. But we didn't want them to do that knowing that the NASDAQ study would be this fall, because the number of man hours it would take us to work on the change with them seemed like a diminishing return to do it twice in potentially 1 or 2 years.
Okay.
So we will continue to do that.
I'd like to clarify, you will maintain a separate, the bus routes for 7th and 8th, distinct from 9th through 12th, or
That-
7th, I mean, there will
That
still
would be
be.
one proposal, but again, the board has not asked the administration to formally study any option yet at this time.
Okay,
So that would certainly be a consideration in a study. I'm hoping that on October 24th, we'll have more guidance from the board.
I wanted to give you a chance to explain to us what you're doing about what Michelle's doing about travel, or should we wait to talk to Michelle?
Let's wait and talk to Michelle. She's handling that.
Okay,
That was one of my questions.
The travel expenses.
Yeah,
yeah.
all over the place.
It was all convoluted and buried
It
and
is.
dispersed. And
What
They are
she
a
sent us a document that we have in our drive that says that she has now, instead of looking at the past and trying to figure out all that convoluted mess, what she's done is to establish new line items for clarification so that we can
That's what I asked her to
track.
do. We just
So we
don't have
can
the
track
manpower to
travel.
go backwards.
I think you also
Should be
changed
tracked.
some of the travel policy with staff?
I don't know. No, there's no.
No, I mean, you told me about that at one point.
I don't know about. I haven't changed any quote. The term policy would imply, in my mind, a board policy. but
Yeah.
Practices are being looked at on every level.
Right. Okay, so in an ongoing way, what we've got is a procedure that I've developed with Michelle where we will submit any outstanding questions. We will get the answers on or before October 24th. And the thing is, for purposes of right to know, I want your opinion, do we need to meet on the 25th to discuss those answers in public? Or to see if we're satisfied, if we can put them to bed? You tell me.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Well, we have some ongoing questions about
Yes.
past and
Oh,
current.
okay.
And so we're going to have a procedure to submit questions on past and current, and then we're going to get the answers.
on the
Right.
24th.
Around-
And you're asking, do you want to meet as a committee the following
25th.
day?
To look at those,
discuss whether this satisfies our inquiries or our needs, or whether we need further probing.
So
Right.
we would get the answers one day and have less than 24 hours to look at them.
when do you want the answers? When do you want them by?
I don't have your list of questions. I have a few of mine.
Okay,
It would-
so how about this? How about if everybody give me your questions within a week? I submit them to the no. At this point, you should pretty well have them.
yeah.
How about by Monday, you give them to me?
This is on past stuff, not on future.
Yeah, this is past,
Yeah.
past and current.
I think we discussed most of, I mean, if I have one and I handed it to the superintendent tonight and said, yeah, this is what I expect to see.
Okay.
That's my question. You brought up a bunch of points that, quite honestly, I'm assuming you've already articulated them.
I haven't put them in a document to be shared at this point, but yeah, I told Tom and Michelle some questions I had, yeah.
So answers shouldn't be coming on a set date. They should be, we receive the answers by a date. But if the answer to 3 of your questions is something she can hit a keystroke and go, yeah, Annie, these are the answers to those questions. You should have that tomorrow. You know, rather than saying, okay, yeah, we're going to wait until the 24th. We'll get all the answers on the 24th, and the 25th we'll meet to decide.
I'm thinking of right to know, and I'm thinking of saying to the public, we asked our questions, we got our answers. Or we asked our questions and we still aren't satisfied with the answers and we need this.
Right.
And I'm just saying, I think we need to meet on the 25th, and hopefully it's a brief meeting without spending half an hour on the minutes.
I'm not going to come that night, but you can.
I'm unavailable on the 25th.
You can, look, my feeling is that I am happy to come to a meeting that's going to be productive and move forward. If you get the answers to the questions and there's something wrong, let's meet. But if you get the answers to the questions and the answers are clear, some of these are really direct, simple questions, like Jim said, blah, 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 this is the answer.
Yeah. Where's the money? You know,
Yeah, all you do
where's
to
this
cover
money?
right to know with that is post it at your next posted public meeting, you say, I received the answers to these questions, they'll be submitted to the minutes for the public. Right, and then they're done. You don't have to meet, we only need to meet if there's an issue to discuss.
Okay, I want to know what the committee feels.
If you all want to meet, I'm fine with it. I'm
No,
just
I
saying
know.
I'm-
Charlton, what?
Well, I don't know, man. I just don't. I have an issue that we previously, 4 months ago, decided this committee was going to talk about, and I don't want to switch gears on you here, but we were going to. This committee agreed that we were going to have a discussion about the upcoming teacher contracts and what this committee would be interested in looking at. When's that going to get this? When might we do that?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I know we don't control the contract, I get all that, but we do vote on whether we approve it or not, so our input would have some merit. I
Okay.
think.
So that would
when
be something, you'd like to have that maybe for the 25th?
I don't know, some point.
Okay.
When? I don't know when. I mean, I know they've just, have you just started it, Larry? You haven't even started it, or where are you? I don't want to know the details, but.
Quite honestly, one can disclose if one is in negotiations.
Yeah.
That is not
That's not
covered.
We haven't, what's the best way to put it?
We're in negotiations.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
That's it.
So it's important that we do that, I guess.
Okay,
So
so,
we're going to put a comment in for negotiations. I will put it this way. We need the answers yesterday,
Then we need a meeting on the 25th.
okay.
No, you need to meet before that.
way before that.
If you're
Way
gonna,
before that.
if you, so what I hear you saying, I just want to make sure I understand, Charlton, because I want to help with this.
Yeah, it's all
If the
right.
BudCom would like to give the board a list of things that they'd like them to consider
Yeah.
for negotiations,
Yes.
we need that immediately.
We needed it yesterday.
Oh, boy, okay.
Okay, well then maybe we ought to spend a little bit of time tonight
Okay.
and add that to the agenda right
I'm not
now.
prepared to do that tonight, and Jack has got some really important issues that I know he'd want to be part of.
Well,
So I wouldn't do it
Can you do it
tonight.
Jack's also away for 3
And
weeks
you
on a hunting
send them
trip.
to me. Just comments to me.
No, it's got to be more than comments. I'd like to see the board, I'd like to see us take some official positions.
Well, Jack has told me he's away for 3 weeks,
3 weeks.
so that's going to be too late.
I didn't think it was on that long.
And so, you know, we can't, that's not effective. I would suggest, I understand you're not prepared for this tonight.
Yeah.
What do you want to do, folks?
Well, I'm
Tell me
glad I
what you
brought it
wanna
up.
do.
Thursday?
What?
Next Thursday?
That seems to be the only solution
Yeah.
if we need to meet.
I have a conflict next Thursday.
Well, I have
But
a
I think
conflict
that could
on
be
the, on the
changed.
25th.
What?
And I said I can't attend a meeting on the 25th.
And I can't do the 18th.
Okay.
I have an idea. Can I offer you an idea that we did for the school board? It might help you.
Go ahead.
I created a survey that the school board members took their thoughts and ideas by article, right? So if you were thinking of Article 1, you say, okay, I kind of would like you to consider this, and they put it into this, Charlton, you wouldn't have to do it this way. You give it to Annie or something, and she'll enter it for you, but it goes into this spreadsheet, right? So I can just see what everyone was thinking, and Larry and Jim can see what everyone's thinking. So you could do a Google document enter in and I know for Charlton, he hates Google, so you could just submit yours in writing to Annie, Charlton, and we could take it that. I'm just trying to
I
be helpful.
appreciate the suggestion, but I always.
You want a conversation?
I want a conversation.
Okay, no problem.
Face to
Yeah,
face.
just trying to help you all out.
That at least would give them some input.
Well.
Any
Jim,
input would be great.
we get right back to just because somebody can't be in a meeting, we can't stop the wheels from turning.
That's right. That's right. Got to keep going.
I am not worried about not being here on the 25th if you want to meet.
It's just also too late.
Exactly. The 25th and the 1st. I think it's the 1st.
What's next week?
So do you want to throw something out there like you'd like to see higher employee contributions? I mean,
Oh, that's something that we've certainly talked about here in this meeting. We've talked about, and Jack has talked about very much, about the higher percentage of contributions. And I'd like to point out that every percent is $175 at maximum cost, for the teacher, so.
Can I be excused? I've got an early meeting in the morning.
Yes, you can go.
Are you good?
Oh, good.
This
We're all
doesn't
set.
pertain to me at all, so.
Yeah, we're done with you.
I don't want to be rude in any way. I just,
Please.
thank you.
drive
Okay.
safe.
Yep, I got to get here early for a meeting. Thank you.
I didn't expect us to be going this long.
Thanks.
What's everybody doing next week?
Next week is the 18th. That was the one that Larry couldn't come to.
Okay, so he can't
Let me
go
see if
next.
I can change it.
Yeah. I can change the one I have on the 18th.
It doesn't have to be on a Thursday, it could be any day. I mean,
Do we have another day that would work for
I
everybody?
could do the 18th. I can't do it earlier. The 18th would be the best day for me.
18th works.
Okay, so the 18th. So next Thursday, we'll have a meeting here. Is that okay?
That works.
7 o'clock?
At 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay.
And that'll give,
And the
if Jack
purpose for
can't
that-
be here, at least I can talk to Jack and get his input and I can relay it.
And please delete everything from the agenda except for discussion of contracts.
The minutes will be easy that way.
Things start to we haven't, I'm looking at it, we're just halfway through the stuff that's on this agenda. And it's
I know.
a 9.
I know. I mean, we spent 40 minutes on the minutes.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it's just frustrating.
18th.
So for the 18th, we'll do the negotiations. The minutes are going to be fairly simple, so they should be pretty easy to do because I'm doing them. So I can tell you they're going to be simple.
Even the 18th would be simple. The board had a discussion regarding the various contracts and made recommendations that are going to be sent to the school district.
Respectfully submitted.
It's regularly submitted.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
is it
So,
time for public comment? Better move it along.
yes, it is now time for public
Yes,
comment.
I'm done.
Public comment.
Thank you for your comments.
I only have 8 pages of notes. It's working. I just want to point out the savings on the Swayze Gym roof. That roof had been in the CIP, and Steve Riley went out and got current bids for it and saved about $100,000 off what the prior estimate was. And that included a full roof with ice and water shield and drip edge and the whole thing. So Facilities Committee and Steve Riley and the superintendent are working pretty hard, like you heard tonight, to try to, get these expenses down to where they're acceptable at least. I'm wondering, and I'm willing to do some research on this, but the discussion about student or class sizes, does anybody know if there's a state regulation or a state recommendation as to what the average, or
Not to exceed 30.
30?
30.
I thought it was 25.
That's a max.
No, that's our contract. The state is 30.
Ours is 25. That's,
But ours is to aim for 25, a goal of.
Right.
It isn't a,
Right.
okay, well, thank you very much for that. The other thing I wanted to note is the cost per student that's in the Department of Ed website information under the data. That doesn't include transportation, it doesn't include debt service, and there's some other things
Food.
like food service, some other miscellaneous costs. So
when you look at our cost, our average cost per student of 17,000 and change, if you take our actual budget of 35 million and divide it by 1,601 students, our real cost per student to the taxpayers is up around $22,000. Now, the reason they leave those numbers out is because not all schools provide transportation at the level, equal levels. They don't all have debt service. So they provide sort of a platform of the costs so you can compare one school district to another. But when you're looking at it from a taxpayer's point of view, what our actual cost is, you just take the budget and divide it by the enrollment.
Thank you.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just comment, one thing that you left off is that in the student costs is not included is the cost of your SAU office,
Oh, really?
which can be a substantial chunk of money.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Any other public comment?
Tammy Mahoney from Kingston. I just have general comments. I just want to say how much I appreciate how hard everyone's working and working together, and sort of the collegial atmosphere. That's a big word lately, collegial. And I'm thinking back a couple years ago, how much of a difference. In absentia, I'll thank the superintendent as well for coming and kind of earnestly trying to answer everyone's questions. And I really do appreciate everyone working together. Again, a couple years ago, this is night and day. Mm-hmm. And I want to just, I just want to make a note because I think I've heard comments before about taxpayers. Taxpayers don't get mentioned enough. They need to be really on the top of everyone's mind. And I did hear taxpayers mentioned a couple times, at least twice by the superintendent. Mm-hmm. So just point that out. We are all working with the taxpayers in mind. Thank you.
I would second those comments.
There's another member of the public here. Are there any further public comments?
Pam Brown, Newton. We just received our SAT scores for this past year, and the math scores are down from 37 to 30% proficient. Now, we are looking at other indicators for students, such as the Armed Forces test and other ways to assess student success leaving high school. But given that we have a 30% math SAT score and about 65% of our students are going on to 4 or 2-year colleges, that's a huge gap because the SAT is supposed to be an indicator of an intent to succeed in college. And we have 65% of our students going on to college, 30% math SAT. So we're trying to understand that if it were a lower percentage going to college, and they were going on to other areas, whether it's voc ed or the military, then we could see, well, are these other areas improving? And again, we have low pupils to teacher ratios, so that should be providing some support for our SAT scores. I'm very concerned about this, and other districts do much better with their budgets, provide much better results for the students. So I suspect we have some issues with our competency-based education model. That would be my concern. It's not a matter of money, it's a matter of our methodology. So we're looking into that. And again, it had improved last year and now it's down again. It's very disconcerting. So we're looking into it.
Thank you. I have a question. It's 65% to 2 or 4. What percentage are to 4 year? Do you know that number?
19%.
I don't mean to put you on the spot if you don't have
the two
it.
numbers. One is 19%. I think that was the 2 years.
Probably 2 years.
Okay,
And-
19. So that leaves 46% going to 4 year.
4 year.
Which need
or with a
SATs
plan to.
and aren't getting, so that's 16% of our students who are going to 4-year colleges and are getting 30% proficiency in math.
Most community college students tend to have an interest to go to 4-year later on, but so they definitely need to have those math scores. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee comment?
Charlton.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have comment.
yes.
I'm, and this is for the people at home too. Have serious and grave concerns regarding this emergency fund that's got raised this year and is coming up again this year. I understand the concept. What has always concerned me is that I know it's not a slush fund, but it's money slushing around, and unspent money becomes the devil's playground. I'm very, and I asked last year for a history on unmet emergencies, and I didn't really get an answer. I'm going to ask it again this year, because if it's just if it's a concept that's not rooted in fact, then I've got a problem with it. We have right now a very responsible school board that returns this money. Past history is not the case. I think I was the one that coined the phrase about the June spending sprees that took place. And I hope we never return to that. I'm willing to look at emergency funds if they're I'm convinced that they're absolutely restricted. I know I've heard, well, the school board will make that decision. That's fine as long as you've got as we have now, a very responsible school board. It's the future school boards that I'm concerned about that may not be so responsible. I made a comment here last year that got taken out of context about Carol Coppola always having money in her pocket. And what I meant by that was that she always had money in the school district's pocket for special projects. And that's what happens when this money's out there sitting. The voters, if this money gets put into these funds, yeah, the school board may get a say in where it goes, but the voters don't. And if we've got millions of dollars sitting in these funds, then the voters don't know where that money ultimately may go. That really concerns me. It becomes an undesignated line item, I guess, or something. It's a lot of money. I fear all kinds of things that future school boards will find a way to invade it. I can just see the legal opinion coming that, well, I'm just going to make something up here, just making this up. Please everyone understand this. So we need 10 new special education instructors. And we've got an opinion from legal counsel because this school board determines that's an emergency. And legal counsel has told us that we can invade all this money and spend it because it wasn't really tied up. You just thought it was. It's going to take a real convincing of me to put that kind of money out there wherever, because then that goes with past history and what I fear in future history. That's all I have to say and about that. I didn't want to get into that tonight, long-term discussion, but I'm going to really want to see this emergency history, because I don't think it exists, quite frankly. So
I doubt it does.
So
Yeah.
you know.
I have to echo Attorney Swayze's comments. When I was rather shocked and somewhat appalled this evening to discover that funds that I believe to be substantially higher were being quoted. We've always funded the unreserved fund, some of these capital reserve funds from the unreserved fund balance at the end of the year. And that's part of the article and how it was worded. And this was highly restricted funds. Capital reserve funds, there has to be a separate public hearing. It has to be noticed and what have you. And because of what I do in the town of Newton, I have not seen a notice for any public hearing to expend any of this money. But I was informed that what should be a several $100,000 special ed emergency fund is about $160,000?
No, 190.
95.
Even 195. I mean, the last time that it was reported out by Mrs. Coppola, it was in excess of 300.
But all it takes is one
Right.
special
But
placement.
however, in order to spend it, it requires a public hearing with public notice.
No, I don't.
No.
I don't think that fund
For
does.
special ed.
I
Not when
think
they're
I
specific.
think that the emergency fund that was voted in by the voters, that has to be submitted as an emergency to DRA for approval.
Exactly.
That is unfunded, I believe. I believe that one has to go through all that kind of stuff, but I don't think the special reserve, the special ed one
The
does.
special ed, that's how it was created. It was created by a warrant article.
No,
I think that would be
the state is
something,
stepped in
I
on that.
understand your opinion. Let's find out.
But
That's
this
the
is
easiest
why
thing.
I agree with Attorney Swayze, is that we were given some information tonight that conflicted with what we believe to be the proper. So
You believe
we-
to be, I have no knowledge. So just,
Well-
you're speaking for yourself. Okay.
What I believe, but it's something that we need this information. We need to know exactly what there was, how it was changed, how any of it was
How it's
spent.
designated.
Exactly.
Okay, so that is something that I'll request the information for. For how many years do you want to track
I
the
would
various
go back
funds?
at least 3.
3 years. Okay, I'll put that in our request for information. That should be very readily accessible.
Yeah, because
So-
Go ahead, finish.
I may well have documentation in my archives of what we've been presented in the past.
So you want to know, what is the current, how many reserve funds exist? What are they earmarked for? What are the current balances, and what were the balances historically going back 3
Right.
years? And
What they were
How
spent
were
for
they
over the last 3 years.
expended?
How they were expended.
And
for the
how
last-
How they are accessed.
I'd also like to know how they can be accessed, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what are the
Are there
parameters that they can actually spend?
Right.
So that we know whether it's something that has to be a public hearing and go to the DRA, or is it something that the school board can say, let's spend it?
I'd like to see that go back 5 years.
5 years, okay.
The reason being is that 3 years is only essentially covering this admin. Take it back and let's see what
Yeah.
the
Good.
tracking is done.
I would have, but I was being nicer.
I'm not.
I was thinking.
And also,
5
I'd like to see a complete list of all of these little special projects that's got money tacked to them, listed out on one sheet so we could see
I'm sorry, what special projects?
any special project that we have in the school board that's, well, like for special ed or for facilities or whatever. Any special fund that is set aside for emergencies or whatever, have it listed out so we can see what is actually there. And when was it last year's?
Okay. And how it's been funded. How about that?
And what is the forecasted future? I mean, we'll find that out.
Yeah.
You know, this is something that we should all know regardless whether you're budget or
Right,
school board or
historically
what.
based on,
Yeah.
Good.
just to get a snapshot, but so that we can put it in perspective for what's requested going forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Sandy?
That is one of the things that we were told last year, that as time went by, Michelle would be able to sort that through.
I know that she's working on something like
So,
that, but I
hopefully
think a little
she's-
nudge would work the right way.
But hopefully she's made some progress with that, because I know that
I know
she
she's
she
busy.
wanted the answers to that as well.
We asked that last year.
We did.
And we
Yep.
got balances.
Yeah, but she just
And I think
didn't
there were
have
4
enough
funds
information.
With balances,
Yeah.
is what it was.
Okay.
So that would be helpful. And as far as special ed, that reserve fund, it really is needed. There is no other way to express it other than that way. Most districts comparable would have at least $500,000. If you had a family move in with one child and then later on that year another child, and we absolutely could not service that child within the district, even though that's our number one goal, it can cost $200,000 to $300,000 for an out-of-district placement. As much as, it seems like a high amount of money, that truly is more reasonable for us, and we are required to meet the needs of any students in our district.
Immediately, too, not time for a
Immediately.
public
No,
hearing or
no.
anything like that.
So that fund, I mean, that amount, that money that item and line item in the budget is used strictly for student services. It's earmarked and used strictly for student services within special ed, and they are required to use the money in that regard. So that money doesn't slush anywhere other than needs within special ed. And that is absolutely true in every district. We are required by federal laws.
Highly regulated.
It's very highly regulated and scrutinized. So I would just want to make that clear that I totally agree with the superintendent that we need to have a reserve fund that is adequate for student services. It really should be a priority, I think, for our budget committee.
So how about this? If they find, and seem to be finding, they seem to have a legal opinion that they can take some of the money before sending it back to the taxpayers, they can take some of it and put it in. Would the budget committee recommend that there be a portion of $250,000 to $300,000 that be retained in a special ed fund? Is that something that we want to do? Not getting into any of these, let me just finish. Not getting into any of these other funds that we want to know some of the parameters of,
Right.
but do that one.
Well,
What do you think?
First, we need a copy of the legal opinion.
yes, I want the legal opinion that says that money can't go
I'm
anywhere.
sorry, but that
You get a
sounds
legal
like
opinion.
prior regimes of, I have a legal opinion, but you cannot see it.
Okay.
So let's ask
We
for
get
the
enough
legal
legal
opinion
opinions, we
on
got two
that.
tonight apparently, we can get, I agree with you, Sandy, that's the one I have the least problem with.
Yeah,
But
sure.
I don't see a reason why we can't have a legal opinion to back that up and says, if it goes in there, it stays in there, it
Yes.
goes nowhere else.
Right.
Okay.
And I'd be okay with that.
Okay, so how about this?
Comment.
How about
We can
this?
put this in the
And-
form of a question to
And,
them to provide that for us.
And I agree.
My comment is, I agree with Sandy, because I was the person who stood up and presented the special ed capital reserve. What I am just shocked at is that we've been told many, many years in a row that they haven't spent a penny out of it.
Right.
They haven't spent a penny out of it. And if it's only at $190,000, because we initially capitalized it at $250,000 out of the unreserved fund balance. So I've never heard of a capital reserve fund that goes negative without expenditure. You know, there's.
So fortunately, we're going to ask and
Yes,
we're going to find
Okay,
out.
so what we're going to find out is this. We're going to find out, and it'll be before our meeting next week that we will get this. We're going to get a copy of the legal opinion that this money can be expended still by the school board, or reserved or set aside in these funds. And number two, we're going to get a history of the funds and what's going on. And then we meet next week, and we're going to be going over the list of things we've gotten back from the school on our Q&A. We're going to be, and very briefly, and we're going to give recommendations on negotiations. And then we're going to discuss and see if we want to give a recommendation on retaining some of that money in that special ed fund, because that's the one that we're really focused on right now.
Depending on the info we receive.
And
Depending on the info we receive, yeah, the legal opinion and so forth.
that they can't, yeah, we have a legal opinion that says it can't go anywhere but the.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, is
agree.
that clear?
Yes.
That's what we're going to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea that the money they've got has already been taxed and people have already paid it, so.
Okay, so we are having a meeting on the
October 18th.
whatever it is, next 18th. 18th. I'd like to get the date right this time. And then following that, I just want to say that on our budget calendar, what we've got is a request that the administration give us the proposed budget by October 31st, so that we can look at it and digest it for the presentation on the 7th. And that's something I will remind Mr. Ambrose and Michelle of, so that they remember that they've got to give it to us. And I guess that's it. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.